May the words that I say and the words that you hear be in the name of God, Creator, Redeemer, and Sanctifier. Amen. Not that long ago, but back when we could gather for such things, I attended a friend's child's birthday party. Cake time was announced near the end of the party, and all of the children ran straight for the table, holding the large, round, beautiful cake. After candles and singing, the group of excited children all clamored for the first piece of cake. Hands shooting toward the poor parent holding a knife in one hand and a plate of cake in the other. Trying to be helpful, I announced that a line had to be formed. The group pushed and pulled at each other until there was some semblance of a line. And then I heard from the very back the tiniest, saddest little voice say, "But will there be enough?" Of course there was enough cake. There was enough cake for children in a 5-mile radius. It was funny at the time, but there's something deeply human about that worry. When we're children, we worry about enough cake, or if when our parents bring home that second child, if there'll be enough love to go around. As we grow older, the worry becomes about enough work, enough money, enough time, enough resources. We even worry if we ourselves will ever be enough. It's the kind of worry that can make us act small and protective of what's ours. We build up ways to protect ourselves and our families and start to believe that if we keep those walls up, we really can keep the bad stuff out and make sure there's always enough. It's not a new worry. So perhaps that's why as we travel through Matthew's gospel this summer, we've come upon story after story that link God and God's kingdom to images of abundance. There's the story of the loaves and fishes, right? Feeding the 5,000 with just a little paltry amount of food. Then, of course, there are the parables, Jesus' images of the kingdom of heaven. He says that God's blessing will be like a farmer just throwing out seeds upon seeds, not worrying about having enough, throwing them on good and bad soil alike, or like a mustard seed growing into a huge tree. The message seems clear. When it comes to love and grace and mercy, when it comes to God, there is always more than enough. And then we get to today's gospel passage. It seems to be the moment where the rubber hits the road, a moment in which these abundant kingdom of heaven promises that Jesus has already said are tested. The moment when we hear the little kid in the back of the line saying, "But is there enough? Do God's promises really extend to everyone? Are there limits to God's grace and mercy?" Jesus has just arrived in the district of Tyre and Sidon when a woman starts shouting at him, and the disciples begging, pleading for her daughter to be healed. There are 3 things immediately wrong with this woman. First, she's an outsider, a foreigner, a person the disciples are not supposed to interact with. She is immediately to be suspected. The text even uses the antiquated word Canaanite to describe her. Calling her a Canaanite is like using a word your grandparents used for people of other races that you would not repeat in polite company. It sounds old and out of touch and a little bit racist. At best, labeling her a Canaanite evokes historical conflicts between Jews and non-Jews. and marks her as a despised outsider, part of those who oppressed the Israelites. Second, she's an unknown woman, someone with no power, who really should not be chasing after these men or asking anything from them. Third, she's frankly annoying, and she's making a scene. She keeps following them, yelling after them, hysterical, as they keep walking. By the time Jesus stops to respond to her, a crowd has gathered to watch, and the disciples are begging him just to send her away. Jesus' response in this moment has the potential to be one of the most disturbing parts of Matthew, or one of the most redemptive. What we want Jesus to do is to deal mercifully with her. We're ready for him to be the hero, to show compassion to the meek and lowly. And instead, Jesus says exactly what the disciples and the crowd want him to say. He tears her down and calls her a dog. His response to her is unequivocal. It's not fair to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs. It's cruel and curt. It's small and cold and deeply human. New Testament scholar Joy J. Moore suggests that maybe Jesus is doing this on purpose. Maybe this is Jesus' point. He's surveyed the crowd, the way they've already dismissed this woman. He's surveyed his own disciples and the way they've already decided that this woman has no business getting the healing she wants for her daughter. And he has surveyed this woman and seen her tenacity, her perseverance, and her undying faith. So he makes a conscious decision to respond the way those watching want him to. He gives full voice to their prejudices. And can't we see our human selves reflected in Jesus' response to this woman? We understand all too well the temptation to denigrate and fear the other, the people we've decided are totally unlike us. We get all too good at tuning out or just not paying attention to people who keep insisting on fairness and justice, believing that there is just not enough to go around. So when she retorts, "Yes, Lord, yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table," the attention of every single person there is on her. And every single person unquestionably, unmistakably hears Jesus praise her and announce that her daughter is healed. There's no question now. In God's kingdom, there is enough grace and love and mercy for everyone. God's faithfulness promised to Abraham and Israel is a blessing to everyone. Former Stern lecturer David Lose, on reading this story, asked, "What does it mean for us and the crowd to watch Jesus appear to change his mind, to go from degrading to praising this woman?" It suggests maybe that if Jesus can be changed, then maybe we can too. He writes, if Jesus can go from being hurtful to being an agent of blessing, then we too are invited into such transformation. We are invited to have our image of God, of grace, of mercy changed by people we would usually dismiss. Invited to think about who we typically restrict God's mercy to, who we would not think of as deserving, and see the expansive reach of God's love. Invited to know our own brokenness, the ways we are short-sighted and small, and know that we can be transformed, and that God's grace extends to us too, even in our lowest moments. We're invited to see change as a holy process, sanctified by Christ, who came not only to change this world, but to be changed by it. In this strange time of separation and fear, may we, when worries about scarcity are real and divisive, be called to hear and see and be transformed by God's kingdom promise, that when it comes to care and compassion and forgiveness and mercy and grace and love, there is always enough. Amen.